Hello, good morning. Susanna Anderson here. Sorry I'm late. What else is new? I'm going to talk just for a couple of minutes about what's been going on in our life while I wait for people to get a chance to join. I am now a week and a day late on this mothering moment and 15 minutes late from when I said I would start today. So, thank you for being patient with me. I am 33 or 34 weeks pregnant. I don't know. Very pregnant and staying busy, getting ready for the baby, staying very busy, finishing up my homeschooling book. And I have a really exciting announcement to make about that, hopefully early next week. So you want to stay tuned into this channel. I have a really, really exciting announcement about my homeschool book that is supposed to come out um, called Read Yourself in Education. It comes in 5 volumes. The first volume I want to release in time for this school year. And the first volume basically goes country by country around the world. And it's basically a topical unit study book, but you can learn and study across all age ranges using books that are widely available at libraries and such. So my book is a resource book to help you with topic ideas, what books to look for, and things like that. And I'm hoping to have it ready for this school year. So there's an exciting announcement coming, hopefully early to middle of next week. So I've been really busy with that. I have been busy just taking care of our family, of course. I put together a board game lending library for our church, so that was exciting. And yeah, just staying busy. I have a whole bunch of videos that I have shot and not had the time to edit. Which, by the way, reminds me for next weekend, and I don't know if it's going to be Friday or Saturday, but for my next mothering moment, so either on Friday or Saturday, and I will announce it on my Facebook page, I would like to do a live mothering moment like this one about home birth, birth in general, and pregnancy related, but mostly focusing on home birth. So I'm actually going to watch the live chat during that one. And if you have questions that you would like to see covered relating to pregnancy or birth or home birth, you can shoot them to me during the live chat next week when I do the next mothering moment. And hopefully I get to cover that. So it's been a couple of minutes. I'm going to talk about today's topic. And today's topic is specifically for moms, and that's trust your gut. So it seems that many times we are told not to be prejudiced towards people based on our first impression of them, to not have weird feelings about people, that it's just your gut feeling, you can't really trust it. But I'm here to tell you that you can trust your gut feeling. And that was an epiphany I had a few years ago when I read this book. Now, I don't have the hard copy because I got the audiobook, and I recommend the audiobook. But the book is The Gift of Fear by Gavin de Becker. And it sounds like a weird title, like fear is not supposed to be a good thing. And it's not, we're only supposed to fear God. But what he calls fear is really more like a bad gut feeling towards people, intuition, if you will, and why that's actually a gift. And in this book, and it's a short book, you can listen to it easily. I think the audiobook is less than 4 hours long, and I've listened to it multiple times. But in this book, he explains why your intuition is not just some random thing that grasps things out of nowhere. You have to realize that the same God, and the author does not give credit to God, he just talks about design, but the same God who protected your physical body with so many things to keep your physical body safe. For instance, you have a skull that is just this rock solid shell that keeps your brain safe. You have a rib cage to protect your vital organs. You have breathing is just a reflex. Just things like that. I mean, things when if people are drowning, the efforts the body makes just automatically all built in and programmed to at all costs try to preserve your physical life. Well, you have to realize that the same God who made provision for your physical protection also provided for your emotional and psychological and spiritual protection. And that when you have a gut feeling, it's not just a random thing, that it is actually a highly intelligent, computed decision that your subconscious made. And there's a lot of modern science that, for instance, confirms that we pick up on things, physiological, biological things that we can't put our finger on. For instance, pheromones. We pick up on other people's pheromones. I know there was a study probably about 10 years ago that showed that if people met and fell in love and got engaged and got married while the woman was on hormonal birth control, once that woman got off the hormonal birth control, once they were married, these couples had a much higher chance of divorce. And the reason of that being is that the hormonal birth control affected her pheromones when she met her future husband and when they became acquainted and started liking each other, and that it changed her chemical balance in her body, imperceptible to us on an active level, just a subconscious level that our body picks up on that. And it changed the body chemistry to where these people actually don't mesh with one another when she's off the hormonal birth control. And the study showed that couples where the woman is on hormonal birth control when they meet have a higher chance of divorcing. And they explain this with the pheromones. So there's a lot of things that our body picks up on. But once you realize it is not random, it is not some, oh, this is a gut feeling, I shouldn't be prejudiced, I shouldn't have these preconceived notions, and you stop judging yourself when you realize this is actually a very valuable tool, then you can make use of it. Now, in this book, The Gift of Fear, the author goes through several cases where he basically analyzes a crime after the fact. And he says, okay, so in retrospect, look at it again. See, the reason why you had an uneasy feeling is because he did X, Y, and Z, the steps. And you can even just go on Google, and if you look up The Gift of Fear, you can find a summary, and it will give you the highlights of the book of what to watch for in a bad person. For instance, one of the things he mentions is forced teaming. These are people who try to unify themselves with you by saying, we have a problem here and we need to solve this. Oh, what are we going to do? Forced teaming is one of the things. Another aspect is that bad people don't take no for an answer. You tell them no and they persist. You see this often when you don't want to be friends with somebody for whatever reason, and you have that right. Even within church, you have to be polite to everybody. Of course, that's there. But you don't have to be their friend. And I'm not friends with everybody at church. In fact, I'm friends with a very small minority of people at church because there are 400 people in church. I have a large family. That's pretty much all the social life I need right there. So I don't want to just be this mediocre friend. There's only very few people that I can actually cultivate a friendship with. So, but I'm, of course, friendly with everybody. But there are people where, when it becomes clear that you don't want to be their friend, they start pursuing you more. It's kind of like if you've watched that movie, and I don't recommend it, but The Cable Guy. So, the Cable Guy syndrome. And not to excuse that movie, it's a bad movie, but it perfectly portrays these people who, a normal person, you and I, if we perceive that somebody doesn't like us, we're like, fine, I don't want to be your friend then anyway. I'd rather be friends with people who appreciate my friendship. But these weirdos, these psychos, they will latch onto you more. And they do not take no for an answer. So that's another warning sign. And like I said, you can look up, yes, Bill McGregor. Perfect example, Mrs. McMurtry. So those are just some of the warning signs. But the reason why this is important is because we as mothers, of course, are there for the protection of our children and our family at large. Our husbands are busy, but we have to protect our children. And many times, because we're also women, we do have a better intuition. We are more in tune with these things, but we are also more concerned about how we come across socially. And because of these concerns, when something bugs us, we might not speak up. And this book, or just the concept in general of no, if you have a concern, most likely, more than likely, it is well founded. And you do have to act upon it, and don't feel bad about acting upon it because your primary concern is protecting your children and those in your care. So you have the freedom to know that that's actually not just a foo-foo, weird, off gut feeling, but that you're perfectly justified in it. Now, this is important because we are there to protect our children, to protect our families. Now, what I'm about to say is true for any family, but I think it applies especially to some families like a pastor's family. And this is something that I've seen over and over as our family is in the ministry, and more so as my husband is more well known, and people will attach to us for all the wrong reasons. And bad people try to attack us. They never go after my husband directly. Nobody attacks the head directly. That would just be so blatant, so obvious that people don't do that. It used to be that people would try to attack our unit by attacking me. That really hasn't happened in many years just because my husband has preached against it a lot. You know, people know that if they go around attacking Mrs. Anderson, it will get back to me. And people just kind of, I don't want to say they're scared of me, but I think they are because my social inhibitions of calling people on the carpet, I don't know if it's because I'm German or because I have a lot of kids or a lot of teenagers. I've seen it all. Um, I'm not as inhibited socially as others are to call somebody on the carpet. And I think people are more scared of me. So the prime target has moved to our kids. But now I notice even our friends or even just people we do business with. And you will see this in your own life that when people want to attack you for whatever reason, they will not attack your husband. They might not even attack you. They will go in a roundabout way and they will try to attack from the outskirts and then work their way in. So, for instance, this might translate as somebody saying, you know, I have a midwife that I really love. I've had her for the last 6 births. She's a great midwife. And every once in a while, people ask me who my midwife is, and I reluctantly recommend her just because, you know, I like to keep my midwife to myself, but, you know, at the same time, I understand other people. So every once in a while, people ask me, and they might tell another person, hey, I'm thinking about using XYZ, the midwife, Mrs. Anderson's midwife. And it has come back to me that some people go around saying, oh, well, you know, I think she's a reprobate. And my midwife is not a reprobate. My midwife is married to her high school sweetheart. She has 6 kids. She's a midwife. She's not a Christian. So, of course, she is in circles of people that we would not want to associate with. But she herself is a great person. And the only reason why somebody would say that is just to reflect poorly upon us. Or, for instance, we have a pediatrician, and he is just your random run of the mill, mainstream, allopathic pediatrician. He vaccinates, he does all the normal stuff that a pediatrician does. But we get along famously with him. He is a bivocational pastor of an evangelical church that mostly reaches like people off the streets and homeless people. It's not a very family friendly ministry, as he will himself tell you. But he's a great doctor. He loves our family. And he doesn't force any of the vaccines on us. We just smile and agree to disagree. And he doesn't bring it up, and I don't bring it up. Because the reason why I go to my pediatrician is not to educate him on the evils of vaccines. I go there when the treatment surpasses that which I can naturally provide. So if I need antibiotics, which has been twice in all my parenting years, or if I need steroids for one of my kids' asthma, or if I need like hardcore allergy treatment because my son is having an anaphylactic reaction to something, I'm not trying to go to the naturopath. I'm going to the doctor that has the big guns. Now, granted, I go there rarely, probably once per year between all 10 of my kids. And even then, half the time, he's like, why'd you even come? You've got this. This is fine. So I get along with him famously. But there have been others that no longer go to a church that ask me, where's your pediatrician? Who do you go to? And I go there, and they go there, and they have a falling out with him because they were like trying to force him into giving up vaccines or something. You know, that's not what I'm there for. But then they go around the church like, oh, you know, that pediatrician that Mrs. Anderson recommends, he's just big pharma and he pushes vaccines. And they basically try to reflect poorly on us by attacking our circles. And like I said, I never voluntarily recommend anybody or any business but they seek it out just to then malign those people because it reflects poorly on us. Well, they often, bad people also try to do this with our kids, and they will try to do it with your kids. Now, you might not be under attack as much, but the same principles apply. And you will find that many times people try to do one or the other, or they try to do both. They basically try to befriend your acquaintances, your friends, your kids, or they try to portray them in a bad light, your friends, your acquaintances, your kids. Or they do both, where they try to befriend them first, and if they can't befriend them, then they malign them. And of course, you might not be as concerned about your pediatrician or your midwife as you are about your friends or especially your kids. But watch out for that, because the end game of these people is not to stop at your pediatrician or at a store that you recommended or anything like that. Their end game is to get closer and closer until they can attack the core of the family, of course. So even just being aware of that, even if you deal with it on a much smaller scale than we deal with it because of my husband's notoriety, you want to watch out for that, because these people are bad people and you have them in your life. Now, the best way to disarm a bad person, the best way, the thing they fear more than anything, is to call them on the carpet, to let them know, hey, I'm onto you, I'm watching you. Because the one thing that they fear more than anything is being exposed. So if you have that relative in your family that just wants your daughter to sit on his lap and always insists that he gets hugs and kisses, and he always wants to tickle, and he makes a point to do this in front of you. So you're like, well, it can't be bad because he's doing it in front of me and it's all on the up and up. That's actually a grooming behavior. What they're doing is they're doing all this non-sexual touch just to desensitize the child in front of the parent to being touched by them, so that the child's guard is down, and it brings the parent's guard down, because the parent's like, well, they're doing it in front of me, so they must not have ill intentions, because if they did, they would be doing it in secret. No, they're doing it to bring your guard down, to bring the child's guard down. So if you have a relative like that, if you have a friend of the family like that, and you see them do these things, and especially if you notice that they are watching you, or if they even ask questions like, oh, hey, you don't mind if I tickle her, do you? Or do you think I'm a child molester if I tickle her? They want to act like you're just wait. And these are literal, actual things I've heard. They basically want to put the ball in your court and make you go on the defense, like, oh, no, 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 everything's fine. But they will intentionally try things and push the line to desensitize you, desensitize the child, so that when they are alone, they have already groomed the child. And that's another thing that this book talks about, that many times when we think of a predator, we think of like a predator, like somebody snatching a kid off the street and throwing them in the back of the car and driving off. That's really rare. By far, the most common type of predator is what's called the persistence predator. And they will spend days, weeks, months, years grooming their potential victims. And it's worth that investment to them because the dividends are so great. Because if you just violently grab a child off the street and throw them in your car, you might be able to get away with it for a day or two. But then it's the end of the line for them. Whereas if they're the persistence predator, and they could have so many hooks in the water because it's on such a low key level that in one family they could already be to the full blown molestation stage, whereas they're already grooming their future victims and are far less down that line with them. So you want to beware of people who do this. And the one thing they fear more than anything, the one thing that they fear is being exposed. So the best thing you can do is to confront it head on and say, I'm not comfortable with you touching my daughter. I'm not comfortable with you tickling my daughter. My daughter does not have to give you hugs. And you just make it very clear to them, I'm onto you. And that will send them running like nothing else. If you receive an ill report about somebody, and there's enough evidence for you to pause and go to that person and say, hey, I heard XYZ and the evidence is rather compelling. Can you explain this to me? And when you say that, they have nothing to say. And in fact, they flee your life, whether that's cutting off all contact with you, whether that's literally moving out of the city or the state that you live in. It's just dropping off the radar from one day to the next. Just take it to the bank. You were dealing with a bad person. See, if a good person is called on the carpet for maybe overstepping the boundaries, maybe they were naive, maybe they were raised differently and they didn't know, they will apologize and they will seek to make things right and they will seek to redeem their reputation. And they're like, oh man, whatever it takes to prove to you that I'm not a creep. Hey, you don't want me hugging the kids, that's fine. For instance, I'm thinking of a relative where this particular person always wanted to go off with our kids playing in the attic. Like the typical, hey, I've got all these Legos and toys up in the attic. I'm going to go up and play with Solomon in the attic. And I'm like, okay, I'm coming too. Well, then I don't want to anymore. A normal person would be like, okay, sure, no problem. But the predator, because they seek to remain anonymous so they can victimize more people, they fear that exposure. So when you call somebody on the carpet, you get one of two reactions. If they're a good person, they will receive the correction. They will do what is necessary to get in your good graces and redeem themselves and get into good standing. But chances are when you call people on the carpet, and I would say this happens more than 9 times out of 10 when I do, they cut off contact, they flee the state because they know they have a guilty conscience. They know there's no redeeming qualities. They know they can't redeem their reputation because their reputation is mud and they're bad people. So don't be afraid to call people on the carpet if you're unwarranted, which is unlikely. But even if you are, those people clearly did something to overstep their boundaries. They will seek to make it right. But chances are you're onto something. So anyway, I highly recommend this book. I will put a link to it in the description of this video. And I really recommend the audiobook. That way you can listen to it and you can play it for your children. I had my older kids listen to it just so they would be wise to these things. And don't be afraid to speak up. Trust your gut. It is a very intelligent tool that God gave you. It is based on real physical things that you're picking up on without noticing. So I'm going to look back through the chat here for a minute and see. Oh, wow, that's awful, Amanda. I'm sorry. It's very, very common. It's so sad how common it is. So, yeah, I think that any victim of abuse would agree with all the points in this book, but you don't want to go there, of course. And it's not always the evil uncle, although that is a common theme. It could be a step parent. It could be a step sibling. It could be anybody who themselves was victimized is likely to re-victimize themselves and turn out to be a bad person themselves. So always trust your gut and realize that it is not just out of nowhere. It's not just out of thin air. And always seek to learn new things. If this book interests you and this is something you want to pursue, you can look for other related books on Amazon. You always want to keep learning and always stay on the cutting edge, because you know that we wrestle not against flesh and blood. The devil will send evil people into our lives to attack us. Alrighty, well, it has been 24 minutes. Thank you for joining me today. And please join me next week for my mothering moment on all things pregnancy and birth. And if you have questions, I'm actually going to have my tablet open here so I can read the questions as I talk and I can answer specific questions. Thank you for joining.